Okay, okay, good evening, everybody. Good evening and welcome to the call for tonight. And we're going to get started here shortly. I'm just going to go ahead and put the link here inside of the Facebook group. And then we'll just jump right in here. Okay, so if you have any questions, please feel free to let me know. I'm going to share my screen with you here in a minute. And let's see if I can get this turned on here. Okay, very good. Okay, if you can hear me, please put the letter Y in the question box and we will get started. Okay, so what we're going to talk about tonight is, taking your PLR and obviously, turning it into live training, and not just live training for any particular purpose, right? Or any purpose that's non-specific. We want to turn it into training for more sales. And so this is going to be a little different because when you start thinking about live training, you're typically talking about webinar. You're typically talking about a sales webinar, and that is not what I'm talking about here tonight. And so we want to talk about how you're going to take the PLR that you have. It really doesn't matter what form it's in, even if it's in video, if it's in articles, if it's in ebooks, if it's in whatever it is. You want to be able to turn that into live training, and I'll tell you why that's important here in a minute. So why do you want to use PLR in the first place? And when you're training live, there are going to be, I'd say, several reasons to be using PLR. First, you really should already know the subject, right? So I don't think that you should be using PLR necessarily to become an expert in something that you don't know anyway, or to all of a sudden start presenting live on something that you have no idea what's going on. Because again, I mean, the whole idea of doing live training is for you to display your expertise. You could use it if you don't know the subject. I mean, it's not going to be advised. I mean, you want to be able to increase your status after the training. So you want people to come to your training and say, you know what, that guy or that woman, she really does know what they're talking about. I should listen in more. In fact, if they do another live training, I should come back. And part of what you want to be able to establish with a live training is to do it serially. In other words, you want to be able to do, a training if you're going to do it weekly, if you're going to do it monthly, but you want people to be looking forward to the next one. And part of the process is you want people to come back to your training over and over again. And what you're basically doing here is proving you have expertise. You're also proving and establishing trust. So you want to be able to take you want to take pretty much static content, and to make it dynamic. It's difficult to take static content that you don't know and make it dynamic. So in other words, if you already know what you're talking about, you can take something that you have read, you can take an angle on something, and basically all you're doing is filling in gaps. You're giving life to something based on your experience. If you don't have any idea of what's going on, taking static content and making it dynamic in live training is difficult, right? You should be using it as part of your opt-in, right? So anything that you have that you can give away, again, what you're doing on the live training, you want to be able to say, hey, you know what? If you want a checklist of what I've talked about, or you want a checklist on how to do that, or you want a checklist on getting started, or you want a cheat sheet or something. See, if you don't have to put those things together, you can focus on making your training dynamic, right? And so anything that you have that's PLR, you can make it as part of your opt-in. You can also be using it as handouts. Now, obviously, I'm not using handouts in this training, but anything that you can give people, to give them handles. You can give people give voice to what you're talking about, or something that they can look at while you're talking is going to enhance the presentation for you. And again, all this does is it helps you to establish trust. So again, live training plus PLR is a good combination. You should be using anything that you have as a checklist, as I said, and you can and should use it as an offer to sell to people that are interested once you completed your training, right? So if you have offers where that are PLR, if you're doing a training on that subject, you should be able to send people to an offer that you already have. One of the best uses of PLR, obviously, is to get a buy button on them, get them on your server, and then during the course of your presentation, refer to them so that people know where to go and people can buy something from you. Again, you are drawing people to you during a live training so that you can basically again demonstrate that they can trust you if you make a recommendation. Right now, let's talk a little bit about knowing the content, because again, I want to stress that all PLR really does is it ought to enhance what you already are, right? Again, try not to, if possible, starting from scratch, not knowing anything about the subject, and then present it. Use PLR as a guide, as a bolster for you, on something that you already know. Um, For example, I mean, you can take an ebook on the subject. You can edit out those things that you disagree with, and then you can then use them and add them to your presentation and to your handouts. You want to use anything that you have to rehearse or practice what you're actually going to teach, right? Again, what you're doing is saving time. You already know the material. All you're doing is you're bringing more resources to your presentation. You're bringing more dynamic resources to your presentation, and really what you're doing is proving your expertise. Use anything that you have as an outline to structure your presentation. So in other words, maybe you don't know the entire context on a subject, but let's say you basically understand how to do Facebook marketing, but maybe you don't understand the entire context. What you can do with PLR is to give structure to your presentation by making sure that you're touching on all 10 things that, let's say, all Facebook marketers ought to know. Maybe you know 7 of those things, maybe 3 of them you don't know, but because you understand Facebook, you're going to be able to talk on those other 3 things. And the PLR, what it does is it gives you the entire structure. It proves your expertise because all you're doing is you're giving a complete picture of a subject that you're bringing to people live. You're also you want to try to determine how much written content on the page equals 10 to 15 minutes, right? So when you're looking at, let's say, a PowerPoint presentation, if you're looking at an ebook, you've got to be able to figure out, and this is part of the skill process, and this is going to take time as you start to do more live presentations. You want to be able to determine when you look at a chapter of text, or you look at a presentation, or you look at a video, how much of that do I need in order to give 15 minutes of live presentation? Because that is going to be your gauge, because you want to start thinking about doing live presentation in chunks of 15 minutes at a time. And so every time you get something in your hands, you want to be able to determine, okay, you know what, how much of this is going to equal the 15 minutes? Because that will help you to structure your presentation. That'll help you to determine what you're going to need. Let's say if you want to present every week, you want to have a good idea of how much content you're going to need and how much is going to feed you in order for you to be able to do this on a weekly basis. Now, you want to use that gauge to determine how much you're going to need to present live and how much you're going to be able to bundle to sell. Now, also, you want to be able to outline your content. The goal in any training that you're going to be doing live is always going to be twofold. Number one, you want people to be able to do something actionable, right? So you want to be able to give them something that they're going to be able to take what you've told them and actually be able to go out and do something. Secondly, you want them to consume everything, right? So if you've got 15 minutes you're going to be on there with them, if you've got 30 minutes you want to be on there with them, you want to make sure that they're going to consume what it is you're talking about. Now, again, a live presentation is not just for the sake of let's say for you to teach or you to talk. You want to get people to consume. And so if that means cutting things out of your presentation so that you make sure they get everything, if you make sure you adding things so that you make sure that they do something, that is what you need to do. Even if you get through everything that you're going to teach, let's say on a session, you need to go back through that session and try to figure out, okay, you know what can I get people? What can I push people? What can I influence people to take action on? What can I do to make sure that they're going to get everything that I'm talking about? Again, consumption and action are the two goals in any training. If you do that on a regular basis, your training is going to equate to more sales. I'll get to how that's going to happen here in a minute. Built into your presentation ought to be engagement. So if you've got people on that call, you've got to be drawing them in, right? If you know their name, and typically on something like GoToWebinar, you can see someone's name. You want to be able to do what you can, call them by name if you have to. Now, again, sometimes, you know, you don't necessarily want to call somebody, but you don't want to, you don't have to have them respond, right? But if you know and you see them, you want to be able to call them by name and ask them a question. Again, that doesn't mean you have to bring them on live. That doesn't mean you have to make sure, that doesn't mean you have to hear their voice. What you do want to do is keep them engaged. Structure in questions, right? So that you're asking them on a regular basis, whether or not they understand something. Ask them questions so that it keeps them tuned in. Ask them questions so that they're thinking about what it is that you were talking about. Structure and interaction, right? So have places, and this doesn't matter whether you're presenting live, online, or you're presenting live in person. Structure in interaction so that people have to engage with you. You want to be built in. You want to build into your presentation. There ought to be further research. In other words, structure in things for them to go to your site and see, so that you make sure that they're interacting with some of your other content. You want to make sure that you are doing things and influencing them to take action on your site. And this is going to be especially true if you're going live, let's say in Facebook, or you're going live on YouTube. You've got to give people an opportunity to get off of those platforms, to get onto your site, and to be there and get comfortable with your site. That is the goal. You want people to be comfortable going to your site, even if they don't necessarily opt in. But if they get there and they see something and they start looking around, you want people to get used to clicking around on your site. And so you've got to structure things on your site for them to go see, and structure those things into your presentation. Structure in ways for them to go research things that you're talking about on your presentation, to go to your site, to go and see, so that they can, again, get more used to being on your site. And again, it's easier to do that when you're using a webinar platform than it is if you're on Facebook Live, than it is on YouTube Live. However, that doesn't mean that you can't do it on YouTube Live or Facebook Live. You've just got to do what you can to move people onto your site as much as you can during your presentation. Structure in things for them to go see your multimedia, to see and to hear. So if you are on a webinar platform, you want to get them onto your multimedia, get them onto your podcast, get them onto your YouTube channel, get them into those places so that they're hearing your voice more and more, so that after the webinar, let's say after the call, after the training, you want people, again, to see and hear you. Get them into your multimedia as much as you can. Give them reasons during your presentation to go and experience your multimedia. So again, so they can see and hear you. They get used to you. These are going to be the things that actually will build into getting people to opt in. It's really hard to get people to opt in if they don't know you. They have no idea what you're talking about. But if you can get people, if you can influence people to see and hear you more, you will be more apt to, and you'll get more response when you ask people to go and opt into your website. Structuring things for them to purchase and to get results faster. And this is going to be kind of important. I mean, you probably already know this, but this should be all throughout your presentation, that you should be saying and giving people the opportunity to purchase things from you, right? Give people the opportunity to go and see and hear things so that they can go and buy something from you. Now, one of the things you want to do, and I want to take a step back here on this part of the presentation, because this is part of the thinking process before you start mapping it out, before you start thinking about what it is you're going to be talking about. You got to think about the reason that your customer is buying. Right now, if you haven't sold anything yet, think about the reasons that your customer is buying, let's say in the marketplace. But if you already have customers that are buying from you, think about the reason, or try to get to the reason they're actually buying. Yeah, is your customer buying because they want a plan? Are they buying because they want to try to build their knowledge base? Are they buying from you because they want accountability? Try to determine what it is that your customer is doing and why they're buying from you, because this is going to really determine how you're going to use PLR. right? So if you've really got people who are looking, they already know the content. What they want is accountability. Then you're going to have to structure what you're selling. You're going to have to structure your presentation so that you give to them more accountability. What you buy when it comes to PLR is going to be important, but just as important is going to be how you're going to lay it out. What do I mean by that? Let's say that you get 20 videos on a subject. That doesn't mean that just because those 20 videos came in a certain order or they came together, doesn't mean that's the way you have to present it. You've got to determine what it is your customer's looking for, right? How you present it is not necessarily how it comes in the package. You've got to structure your package. You've got to structure what you're doing based on the needs, based on what you're trying to accomplish, as opposed to the way it comes in the package, right? Let's say an ebook comes in 200 pages. That has nothing to do with how you ought to present it. Right? Let's say that all the chapters go in a certain order. That has nothing to do with the way you ought to present it. You've got to present it based on the way your customer is telling you or giving you an indication that they want and they need in order to be successful in the subject that you're teaching. So in other words, don't think about what I call heft, right? So the idea is to make things as big as they possibly can. Again, now sometimes you'll be able to get a sale that way, but just because you overwhelm people with stuff, you're not going to get people to come back to you over and over again at higher prices because they're going to go to people that they trust, right? I mean, you can make sales all day long with a lot of stuff, right? If you give people a lot of stuff, you'll be able to make sales, but you'll be able to make them at lower dollar amounts, right? If you want to pull back from that and you want a higher quality customer, higher caliber of customer, you'll be able to make it. You'll be able to do that at a higher dollar amount if you don't focus on heft. Right now, and I want to say this also parenthetically, right? So and I have said this on other occasions, right? Don't think of PLR as being out of date. You might say, you know what, that PLR was made in, let's say, 2016. It's out of date. No PLR is ever out of date, right? Especially if you know what you're doing. Old PLR makes great live training. What do I mean by that? What you're basically, you can do an entire session, right? And it makes for a session that's probably going to be more interesting than just about anything that you're going to hear being done. Because basically what you're going to do in a session like that, you're going to bring people from what used to be to what's happening and what's working right now. And basically nobody else is doing this. Right? The more that you do this, what you're going to be doing is basically building trust, improving your expertise, because you've got to be able to explain why things are the way they are now and why they're no longer the way that they used to be, right? That takes expertise. That might take some research on your part. If you can explain the why, what you're doing is you are proving your expertise, right? Most people don't understand the why. And most people in our industry, we explain the what to do, right? And what happens is people understand what to do until something changes, right? And when things change, if they don't understand why, if you taught them what to do, you didn't teach them why they need to do it, that if anything changes, anything goes sideways, they don't know how to make a decision. Right? If you teach people why things happen, why things are the way they are, if anything goes sideways or they hit a snag, they'll understand how to move past that based on your teaching, because you taught them the why and not just the what or the how. And basically all you're doing, and every time you do this, is proving your expertise. So always consider taking that out-of-date PLR and using it in your live training. Also, you'll be forced then to do some research, right, in order to make a good live presentation, but it's going to be unique, right? You're basically taking something that everybody else has, or something everybody used to have. You're doing a little research, you're bringing it up to date, you're explaining the why. You have created unique content. And that's going to be important because depending on what kind of rights you have, you can repurpose PLR with live training. Right? Live training always repurposes PLR. It always does. Right? You can take anything that you've been given, do a live training with it, and it becomes new. It becomes something brand new. It becomes something that didn't exist before. The only thing that I'm going to say to you is what I'm saying to you here is that you've got to be careful about what rights you have. Because if you take the content you have, rights to repurpose is the easiest way to make unique content. It's the easiest way to make unique content, and that is to repurpose PLR. Your live presentation or recording can be transcribed, can be turned into written content. Your live presentation recording can easily be turned to YouTube or social media video, easily, right? And anything that you do live can be turned into PowerPoint slides and used as a basic for a separate product, right? So anything that you have, right? Anything that you have as PLR can always be repurposed when you do a live training with it. Now, um, um, when you do that live training, you ought to be putting stuff on your website. Now, I'm not just talking about putting the live training on your website. I'm talking about while people are doing your live training, your website should be full of good stuff, right? You want to take the PLR that you have, and you want to make sure that if you're going to teach on a subject matter, let's say that you've got article content, you want to make sure it's all over your website, because you want to be able to send people to your website after your live presentation, sometimes even during. Anything that's relevant written ought to be on your website. Make sure to redo the content, in the way that it sounds like you. Make sure you're adding links to your offer, when you use written content. Anything that's video, right? Reuse it as your own on your site. Put bumpers on there, put your call to action in there, and then make sure to watermark the videos. But do use video content on your site. Right. Again, all it does is it establishes your expertise. I mean, I know a gentleman that does this. I mean, almost flawlessly. I mean, he takes PLR content. He doesn't make any bones that he wasn't the one that recorded the videos. Right. In fact, it works to his benefit, because I see people thanking this gentleman because he put it on his site. Right now, anything that you have that's going to be a presentation content, you can put it on SlideShare. And anything that's relevant in terms of an offer, you want to make sure you've got those things on your site for people to purchase. And while you're going through your presentation, when I talked about referring to the things and giving people a reason to go there, this is what I'm talking about. These are the things that are going to be on your site that you're telling people, hey, you need to go over to my site and check these things out. One of the unstated goals should get people to spend time on your site. Right, that should be one of your unstated goals. You ought to have highly relevant content to your presentation also on your site and link it up to your relevant offers. Okay. Also, we'll talk a little bit about using videos during the live training, and it might seem a little bit tricky. This really depends on your platform. You can use live recorded video during your live presentation. But you've got to have the capability to make sure the audience hears the video through your system. Right. So presently, because again, I've seen people do it where they use their external microphone. They just put their microphone up to the, up to the computer. That's a little bit risky. You're always risking the fact that you're going to be, degrading the, I'd say the quality of your replay. And causing there to be feedback. So again, if you don't have to do that, if you have to do that, then that's fine. If you don't want to do that, you can always use one of the platforms like GoToWebinar. GoToWebinar allows you to play a live video during your live presentation, right? So that people will hear the audio in the video, right? That's very important. So again, if you don't want to use GoToWebinar, that's fine. Make sure your platform can do that you can preload that video in there, and that people are going to be able to hear the audio. They're not just going to see the video as you play it, and that you're not going to have to put your mic up to your audio. And then yeah, that's going to be important that the individuals that are attending your training will hear the audio. Okay, so tonight we've talked about why you need to use PLR. We've talked about making sure that you know the content. We talked about make sure you're outlining the content. We talked about the reason that the customer is attending and making sure that you understand that. We've talked about making sure that you're using out-of-date PLR, making sure that you're taking any PLR that you have and then repurposing it using live training. And then we just talked about using videos during your live training. Okay, so any questions? Any questions? Okay. Okay, so if you're looking for one of our larger bundles, you can get that at theplrshow.com/the set. We've also got a fairly large bundle that you can get access to at plrexperts.com. So you can pick up some of our old PLR there. Recommended reading, head over to the plrshow.com/books. I'm routinely updating that list. So if you want to just kind of get some reading that you want to be able to determine, we can do that at the plrshow.com/books. And then if you need to just get access to our daily newsletter, we talk about PLR every day. You can do that at the plrshow.com, and additional training at youtube.com/gain mindshare. We do have a Facebook group. And pretty much what I do is I keep the announcements over there, but you'll always be able to find out what we're doing. You can do that at facebook.com/groups/the PLR show. Okay, so any questions? Okay, any questions? Any questions for us before we take off here? Okay, so if not, thank you very much, everybody, for being here. I appreciate you all. Have a great night and a pleasant tomorrow. Take care.